Hi, Dr. Rob.
Tammy, it is always good to see you.
Likewise, likewise. Here we are again. We've got some questions. Can you see both of the questions?
I can press a little button and now I can. There's
Okay,
new
great.
stuff with this program, and so I'm trying to figure it
Yes,
out.
I
But
know that's yes, but I wanted to make sure that if I needed to put them in
yeah,
answer, but I'm leaving a note. But okay,
no, I
so
can
there's
see
the
them.
technological things. Okay, so the first question, Dr. Rob, is I left my addict 3 months ago. He's known he is an addict for 10 plus years and has not sought appropriate treatment. He has debilitating OCD as well. He has acted out with 30 plus women, even sent them private pictures and videos of myself and other girlfriends or ex-girlfriends to other women. He continues to reach out almost every day, apologizing or trying to make casual conversation, even though I've made it clear I did not want contact unless he was in treatment and have not responded to him at all. Hmm. It feels like the next one is a continuation.
It
Okay.
is.
My therapist describes his behavior as predatory. Are actions like this common? What crosses the boundary from addiction to predator?
Well, I don't know about the word predator, but I
Yes.
think that there is offensive behavior here. And I'm not saying offending, but if you don't consent to something, that is offensive. And you did not consent to have your pictures put up online. And by the way, I'm pretty sure there are laws against that, Tammy. I'm almost positive. Even if it's
Yes.
a family member, you could have this partner investigated for sure. Because whether it's your girlfriend or boyfriend or wife or mother, you don't get to take other people's pictures and then put them online. That is not okay. So just to say that even the law has responded to that kind of thing. So it is offensive and borderline offending. That deeply concerns me because it shows that whatever his problems are, they're greater than his respect for you. And however, I have to go back to OCD because if that's not stable, then there are many ways that OCD can show up. OCD is a repetitive pattern of behavior that is carried out to make the person feel safe or comfortable or relieve anxiety. In my mind, the difference, though, between an addiction and OCD is that OCD is not pleasurable. It is, I may relieve anxiety to wash my hands over and over or to take the same exit on the freeway because I'll be overwhelmed if I don't, but that's not a lot of fun. Washing your hands and checking the stove every 15 minutes is not fun. But sexual acting out is pleasurable. Like it or not, good or bad, it is a pleasurable. Drinking is pleasurable. So uh, certainly this person has acted out in an addictive way, but how we therapists think is kind of like this. When you come to see us, the first thing we should be thinking about is a medical problem. Are you medical? Are you healthy? Have you been to a doctor? For men, have you been to a urologist? There's just some kind of issue with your body. The second thing we look at is mental health. Are there issues that are interfering with other kinds of therapy, other kinds of addictions? Because, I can't treat you for something if you're repeatedly going over and over and over in your head. And by the way, I used to be able to, when we had ties, people would come in and they knew how many dots I had in my tie. They knew how many ceiling tiles we had on the ceiling. They were that compulsive. And if you listen to the word obsessive compulsive disorder, compulsivity is considered I don't know, a synonym for repetitive patterns of behavior of all kinds. So there is offensive behavior. There is clearly a problem. There is a problem that is a sexual problem and an acting out problem and a real disregard for humanity. Um, the only thing I would say is I would want an examination and an evaluation by a psychiatrist of, and is this medicated? If someone's on the right medication for OCD and they've stopped, all this repetitive thinking in their head, well, then it really is just addiction. But I would want to clear that up before I made any kind of evaluation or assessment. But regardless of what the obsession or compulsion is about or the addiction, it is not okay under any circumstances to take your photographs and put them up online. It is not okay to reach out to ex-girlfriends. That is not compulsivity. That is really bad behavior. So I don't know you, Tammy, but this is complex as we don't know the person. But there's a lot. And so what I'm saying is we don't know if they're an addict or not, but we can say all of these behaviors are problematic, repetitive, harmful, and in some ways illegal. So there's a lot to me of threads that need to be pulled apart before I could actually say what is going on. So Tammy, I've said a lot of things. Do you have some
You
thoughts?
did. And yeah, I want to tag on because you said by a psychiatrist, but I would be like by a psychiatrist who understands addiction because not everyone does. Like there are
Hmm.
ASAM, American Society of Addiction Medicine, and those are doctors that understand addiction and, these other things. And debilitating OCD, yes, like Dr. Rob said, on the proper medication, then it's like peeling away the layers. And like now we get to, to the addiction. Probably, I don't know, but probably this sounds problematic enough. I mean, you left him. This is a lot. Where I'm going with this, Dr. Rob, is what I want to know is why are you listening?
Mm.
Why are you picking up the phone? Block his number. Like, he calls and apologizes. Apologies are useless. Like I'm sorry, but that's because you've taken action and left. He wasn't willing to do anything when you were together. You were really clear on that. He wouldn't get help. So he hasn't gotten help, but he keeps reaching out. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. To me, this feels like I want to apologize and get you back, but I'm still not, I don't hear that he's willing to really do the work that he needs to do in order to get, help to change. More helpful. And we've had guys that have been served divorce papers while they were in treatment. And guess what? They
Yeah.
did the work, and she had codependent line help, and they navigated a path back together again, in a healthy way, but he's just going, I'm sorry, and ad nauseum. But he's also engaging with you. And I'm sure that there's something in it for him to be able to connect, even if, you know, um, even if it's not a positive experience, he's still connected to you because it's, I'm still connected. I'm apologizing. I'm doing all these things, but he didn't take care of the real issue. So for me, to you, it would be healthy boundaries for you, like, emotional boundaries, physical, you left, emotional boundaries. Do you need to, is there anything that you need to discuss with him, and can it be done with a therapist or a mediator or something? Is there any reason why you had, like, let him know I'm blocking your number, whatever, or don't let him know. Just like take care of you, because all of this is dysregulating. Every time he texts or reaches out or calls or whatever, every time you're interacting, it's dysregulating for you. So I'm concerned about you from that standpoint.
Yeah, just a quick question is why are, and I mean this in the most compassionate way, I really do. You've been through a lot. Couple of quick things. Why are you talking about him? Like, why is he the focus of what's going on with you? If he's caused harm, if they're separated, right? They're not living together. So what I would like to hear, and I think Tammy would, is also this has been incredibly painful and I'm devastated. And what I'm doing for me is how I'm taking myself emotionally, how I'm talking to other women. I assume you're a woman who's struggling with these things so I can get clarity. We have a lot of free groups on our website. We have a lot of also groups that people can get help with directly, like Betrayed Partners. So it sounds to me like there's some work that you need to do. And when I talk about partners, I'm not saying like the addict, like you need to work on your problem. What I'm talking about partners is you've been victimized and you need to recover from that experience of being victimized. I do want to say something about the word predator. Um, predatory people, or sorry, predatory animals, lions, for example, they are looking for someone to go after. A predator is someone that looks for a situation where they can attack. I don't see the word predator in here because I don't hear that there's a predatory behavior. I hear offensive behavior and possibly offending behavior. But unless he's running after these people and ruining their lives and chasing them down, and I'm not sure that there's some. In other words, if they completely don't want this and he is disturbing their lives and keeps going after them, well, that's predatory. Um, but predatory really is about seeking a victim and attacking that victim. This seems more like offensive, just to say it.
Yes, but
Okay.
I'm with you that there are definitely possible legal consequences for that behavior. So,
Yeah.
okay, the next one, Dr. Rob, if my husband did something in his red circle and later told me about it, I don't know when it happened in relation to him telling me, is that a slip or is that a relapse? This is a great question that if you would unpack what the difference between a slip and a relapse is.
Well, first I want to talk about circles briefly. And if you
Thank you.
understand someone who has, you're welcome, someone who has an alcoholic problem, for example, it I don't mean to be dismissive, but it's very easy to think if you're an alcoholic and you're sober or not. Either you're drinking or you're not. For an addict, drug addict, you're using or you're not. It's a black and white issue. For people with eating disorders or sexual disorders, we don't want you to stop eating. We don't want you to stop healthy sexuality. So we have to define with you based on your life and your goals. And they're going to be different for someone who's been married 10 years versus someone who's single. But what boundaries are you setting as your sobriety? Because it isn't just having sex, but it is violating a boundary that you have set. So the circle you're talking about is, and red circle is fine, is if I go cross this, I have acted out and I need to start counting again. Maybe I've had 3 years of sobriety. Now I need to go back to 1 day and I continue. Um, the way that I can't answer your question is I can say what those things are. A slip is basically, and I'll use this word, an unintended return to problem behavior. I, I, something incredibly stressful happened. And I can think of something that's incredibly stressful happened to me a couple of years ago. And I thought, oh, I want to go do this. Had I gone to do it, and whatever it was, and then I came back and to the people in my recovery, to you as my partner, and said, I did this. It's awful. It ain't going to go well for a while, but I want to be honest with you and tell you that happened and I want to stop doing it. That's a slip. I have revealed the information. I am seeking help. I haven't been hiding it for any period of time. A relapse is that I've returned to the behavior and I'm doing it over and over again and I haven't told anybody. A relapse is more long-term. It's more about keeping the secrets. For a spouse, to me, the difference would be I acted out and then in a short period of time, I came to you and I said, this happened and it's really devastating for us, but I want you to know because I want to be honest, even though it's horrible. If I were a spouse and this went on for a year or 3 months or 6 weeks and you didn't tell me, to me that is relapse. It's hiding, keeping secrets, and all that kind of stuff. So Tammy, that's my kind of answer. Do you have anything? You said this was a good
Yeah,
one, so what did you want to
yeah.
add?
Well, and I do think because there's a lot of, like, first of all, you can't really have a relapse unless you're in recovery, and recovery takes time. If you're just abstinent and you've stopped the problematic behavior, that's just abstinence. And so like people use a lot of terms and they get them kind of all muddled together.
Mhm.
I agree with Dr. Rob when he talks about it is what happens with it. If they come clean, that is completely different to me than someone who gets found out. And so and I'm like, my only difference with what Dr. Rob said is like, even if it's one time and it was left unsaid and it wasn't, the truth wasn't told to me, and because it always gets discovered. Here's the deal. It always gets discovered,
Or you feel
so
it
just
in
come
here.
clean. Yeah, well, yeah,
Mhm.
and you're more susceptible to, continuing to do it. So to me, it is really like if I am going like, yes, I made a mistake. This is what I did, and here's what I'm doing to make shore up my recovery program. I've called my therapist. I've called my peer support. I'm going to 2 meetings tomorrow. On whatever it is, like here's my plan. That's a whole lot more helpful for partners to digest. Painful still, not knocking that, but it's different than I found out, and now the entire rug has been pulled out from underneath me. So to me, a lot of it is is timing. Like it's like, well, it happened 3 months ago, and I'm finally telling you that that's still a problem.
That's a
So at
problem.
the end of the day, it like what the language is, what word you decide on is less relevant than what he's doing about it. He came to you and is telling you, and like, is there an opportunity to look at that and go, this is different than how it was
Okay.
before, and I can kind of see some hope, that it's painful, but this is different. So maybe get less tied up into what to label it and just go,
Mhm.
he showed up, he said it, not happy, but gosh, that might be different than what we had before.
Yeah, I think the number one issue for spouses is trust and honesty. So I would hate it, and be very angry and violated. And it might go on a really long time, or we might take a break from each other if my partner acted out. However, if they are honest with me That's a really big difference than if they keep it from me, because one of the big things I hear from spouses is I don't know what's true. I don't know what is. I don't know what's going on in my life. I don't know when there's secrets hiding. And of course, that's what breaks the trust. So you may hate what's gone on, but for a lot of spouses say, huh, this is different. At least I've been told, at least I know what's going on. And I agree with Tammy, whether it's predator or offender, whether it's, what it matters is how is it affecting your life? How do you feel about it? What does it mean to you? So in this case, there's pluses and minuses. Yes, it happened, but you were told. So that's sort of how I think about it.
Yeah.
You want to keep
Yeah,
going?
I agree. Yes. Okay. So the next question, let me hit done. Okay, is 8 years from D-Day, my SAPA spouse continues to lie. When caught and confronted, he goes right into denial, then begins to tell me that I never wanted to save the marriage and just throw him out to find someone that I will love. He lies about everything. He always says he knows it's wrong, but when the excuses start flying, how do I handle being made out to be the bad guy when and him the victim? And this person says, when I told him I don't trust him, he said he doesn't like people that don't trust him. Oh goodness.
Well, I think that's the pot calling kettle black. Um, in our world, as a therapist, we call that externalizing, where I blame the problem on you because it's easier for me to make an excuse that you're the problem than take responsibility myself. And it is a form of gaslighting because basically it makes the spouse confused and it makes them question themselves. And, you're seeing it right ahead of you, but then there's this big smeary lens that's put up and we doubt ourselves. And that's what addicts do. Well, if you hadn't done this, and if work wasn't that, and if our kids hadn't this, and we blame other situations so that we don't have to take responsibility for ourselves. It was this happening. It was the money problem. It was what happened at work. It was that you haven't had sex with me in a long time. It is our way of getting away with it if it's your problem. So um, I, I, you're gonna have to explain D-Day, Tim, if you take that one in a minute. But
Mhm.
what I want to say overall is this is not somebody who's well. This is someone who's very, very troubled, and they are acting out. But not only acting out, but they're in the set. They're not just on the edges of this; they're in it. The way they're acting, the way they're handling it, I don't see any recovery here. And I think that I think it's a he is lying very consistently. I would worry about. I would want you to get an STD test. I would want you to take care of yourself. You don't know where this person has been, what they're doing. And I hate saying that to spouses because it's horrifying. But on the other hand, you haven't been protected emotionally. You may not be protected physically. You got to take care of yourself. And boy, does it become a reality for a partner when they have to go get an STD test. The whole thing about I don't trust him, he doesn't like people that don't trust him. Well, what would you trust? What's trustworthy about someone in this situation? So again, it's I don't like you for blaming me for the pain I'm causing. It's like slapping across the face. And then you're saying, wow, that really hurt. Am I saying to you, well, I don't like people who complain when they've been hit? This is completely turning everything upside down. This is, by the way, someone who would do well in a treatment center. I think Tammy's nodding her head because we do residential treatment for people like this, who they're not only doing the behavior, they're really in all of the things that go around it, the manipulation, the gaslighting, the dishonesty, really not caring how you feel at all, and being willing to actually try to take up any sense of truth for yourself because you are blamed as the problem. And boy, do spouses sometimes you believe that stuff. Well, maybe I have gained in weight, maybe I'm not having as much sex. And boy, that's our goal as an addict is to, if you blame yourself, then we don't have any responsibility at all. So, and that's very troubled. That's very, very troubled. I don't know that I would stay with this person. I certainly would want them to get some kind of help before I would be willing. He's unraveling your mind, basically. And I just think this is where spouses really get overwhelmed is what is true? Why am I getting, what is my part? Spouses will say, you don't have a part. You don't have a part. Someone hits you, no matter what you do, it ain't your part. It's what they did. So, Tammy, I'd love you to give feedback and also mention D-Day because I'm not sure everyone would know what that
Yeah.
is.
So D-Day is Discovery Day, like when you discovered this. So like we have people that had discovery, yesterday or like this 8 years ago. But I thought, wow, 8 years of dealing with this lying and blame shifting. And and instead of, he goes to the, oh, poor me. He knows it's wrong, but then makes excuses, and there's no, gosh, I can understand how painful my behavior has been for you. And I really want to work on the relationship. And I realize that, like this is where it starts is with me. It's like, like constant blame shifting. And I'm with Dr. Rob, the whole thing with, you don't trust him. He doesn't do anything that is trustworthy. I love that our
Right.
program is called Seeking Integrity. We strive for integrity ourselves on a personal basis. That is our company mission is integrity and expertise. We have expert treatment team to work with guys like this. And I put the information in the you'll find it on our website, but I did put the information in the chat about our program. I go right back to, what are your healthy boundaries? Because if he gets to control, like this feels, like this is all about, you're constantly reacting to him rather than you holding your healthy boundaries for your safety. He will never be safe enough. Like on this current path, you can do 8 more years. And that's what it's going to feel like. You're going to do 8 years, like jail time, because this is unimaginable, how painful this must be for you. So I'm telling you, healthy boundaries for you, internal boundaries, external boundaries. We talk about that at length in the Empowered Women's Retreat. We only have 1 spot left for August. We'll offer it again in October, but for the August one, oh my gosh, it's amazing and healing. And we don't talk about him. We're working on,
Or
on healing
and
for the
you're going to be
partners.
there. Let's not
I,
forget
I
that
will
part.
be there, yeah, and it's such a gift for me to be there and be part of the experience and help support the amazing women that are willing to come and take care of themselves. But yeah, this is untenable, and he's lying to himself. He's manipulative, gaslighting. Like this is
Bad.
bad. Yeah, bad. Thank you. That's the
This is when
clinical
people
word.
lose their
Bad.
minds, when spouses
Yes.
lose their minds. Um,
Yeah.
okay, this is a great question, Tam. I'm looking forward to this one.
Oh, he said he doesn't need help. Again, yeah. So he doesn't need help,
Change the
and
locks.
right, and nothing changes if nothing changes. You guys can keep doing this like years, decades, and he won't change. I said this to a couple people today. Nothing changes if nothing changes, and until the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same, an addict will not change. So as long as he can manipulate you and gaslight you and blame you, he's going to keep on doing the same thing he's doing. I think he's probably acting out. Like even though you say there's D-Day and maybe he's, you have a hope that he stopped the acting out. I doubt it. I
No,
sincerely doubt it. So what do you need to do to take care of you? Okay. Should I stop drinking? Oh, here's a good
I
one.
like
Should
this
I stop
question.
drinking alcohol and using marijuana? I have done some sexual acting out behaviors while under the influence of alcohol and marijuana. Those substances were not um, always part of my sexual acting out, and I don't think they were part of my acting out ritual. However, they certainly can be a way that I escape discomfort even today. I can get obsessive about using it, and using can lead to me behaving in ways that are selfish and have a negative impact on me and others. I've been sober about a year, active in recovery. Listen to Dr. David Fawcett sexualized drug use session. I think there may be 2 issues. One is that I have a drug and alcohol addiction, and 2 is continuing to drink and drug prohibit my overall addiction recovery. Also, as a follow-up to a slip versus relapse, is if I objectify a woman, is it a slip? So let's unpack this,
Like there's
one
17
piece at a
questions in
time.
here. Can I
Yes,
ask one question
exactly.
about that, Tammy? Because
Sure.
I don't quite understand. When it says I have been sober for a year, does that mean
Yeah.
sex? Does that mean drugs?
I
What does
think,
that mean?
yeah, that to me, and I was going to clarify on that, you've been abstinent from sexually acting out, but you're drinking and drugging, so like, yeah, so to me, that is, we are not happy, joyous, and free. I went to my 12-step meeting today and somebody used that, and I use that regularly. We are happy, joyous, and free if we are not using behaviors, chemicals, whatever to escape. And you nailed it yourself. You said, I use these things to escape discomfort, and that takes us away from life. It also takes us away from the good things, and you said that too, like that it's, hurtful to other people too, so I'm going to invite you to consider, you are abstinent from sexually acting out, but you're using other problematic behaviors. I go back to our residential treatment program. we look holistically, at alcohol, cannabis, any substances, but eating, gaming, gambling, shopping. Like, you have to look at all of those things, because if I'm hanging on to something, Dr. David talks about how damaging smoking and vaping is. You're 9 times more likely to relapse whatever the form of acting out is if you're doing those things. So
Tammy, can you mention who Dr. Fawcett is? Because he's part of our team, and I'm not sure that
he
everyone
is,
knows.
yes. And I'm so glad they brought up sexualized drug use. I've got the book. You know me, I've always got the book. So Dr.
It
David's
looks like you're
newest book,
reaching out to
I know it
heaven.
does. So, Sex Under the Influence. So the new term is understanding and healing from sexualized drug use, because Dr. David Fawcett, who authored this book and is on our team and works with the clients who come to us, for those that have paired substance and sex addiction. But originally it was chemsex, and that was gay, meth, sex. And there were too many people that were struggling with sex that weren't using meth, that weren't necessarily gay. It was like, so he wrote this book, and it's just fantastic. And he probably will need to update it all the time, because the new substances that come out are it's just crazy how fast new stuff, hits. So, but this is a good book for people to know, therapists to know. And there's a lot of under educated therapists out there too, that just think, like Dr. Rob said, if I stop the chemicals, then everything's going to magically be okay. And that isn't the case. So we really are looking at holistically at things. So anything that I'm hanging on to that lets me numb out and escape is problematic behaviors. And you're missing out. Like, this is my message to you. You're missing out on the good stuff of recovery if you're hanging on to, things that are, basically meaningless. None of those things are the outer circle things that will bring you joy and connectedness in life. So
Um, Tammy, I go back to, I had a therapist. No, it was really it was a patient who was in recovery. And it was a woman that I was treating, and I had a women's group, and she was doing really, really well. She had done well for a long time and gone to lots of meetings. And I'll never forget something she says that applies so much here. She said, I've learned that if I'm questioning something that I'm doing, it probably isn't a good thing. I don't question that I'm going on vacation. I don't question that I'm going to have an extra piece of cake. Maybe I shouldn't. But when you question a serious decision in your life, I think there's a problem, because people just do what they're going to do. They don't say, oh my God, should I or shouldn't I? So I do think that is something to consider, is why are you even asking this question? By the way, if I look down, I'm taking notes. So um, what I'm thinking about is that addiction is it's the tip of the iceberg. It's the part that we see. Whatever that addiction is, we say, oh, that's that person's problem, is the addiction. But I can tell you, having done this for 30 years, that what's underneath that is trauma. What's underneath that is abuse. What underneath that is anxiety disorders or other issues. You never get to see those or look at those unless you stop. Because as Tammy often says, and I love this term, it's whack-a-mole. You put down the gambling, and then you're spending, and then you're spending, and then it's sex, and then you're drinking, and you are unable to get to a place where you can find peace enough to understand why. Now, everybody comes into treatment, I have to say, why do I do this? What does it mean? What? That's really not what I'm interested in the beginning. What I'm interested in is, can you stop? We can look at why once you've stopped, and you can understand, oh, I'm not a terrible person, or these things happen to me, or you can begin to come to peace, excuse me, come to peace with how you ended up there. But until you stop all of this, there's no personal growth. So to go from one thing to another thing to another thing. By the way, you're very clear that you did some of this under when you were using. So I guess, why do you care? Why do you want to do this? What is the point? Is drinking and drugging so important to you? All your choice, do whatever you want, that you're not wanting to grow. And by the way, and I'm going to say this, Tammy, you're not going to like this. Maybe you should just keep acting out. I mean, what are you gaining here? You've given this up, you're doing that. You're giving, I just don't see I don't see you coming to a resting place where you can begin to have your own growth. And there's another question. I continue to drink and drug. Does that prohibit my overall addiction recovery? Of course it does. I mean, there's no question about that. As long as you're still spinning those plates, you're still playing the game. So, and if I objectify a woman, so the word objectify has a lot of different meanings for a lot of different people. And I don't think you're stable enough on a whole bunch of levels to ask that question. Um, I will answer it for people in recovery. And then this is hard for spouses, I think, to understand or feel. I am attracted to people. And if I'm in recovery and I'm really doing well and we're having dinner together, I might notice that that person's attractive. I might look over. I remember back in the day, I used to say to my partner, "Oh, they're really attractive." My partner said, "Yes, they are." It isn't some hidden, secret, furtive thing. It's like I'm human and I find people attractive and then I move on. Objectifying to me is the staring, the fantasizing, the hope someone else doesn't see. Like I said, to say to my spouse, "Oh, that's an attractive person. I'm not hiding anything." Do I objectify? Sure. Everyone objectifies. We look at something and we think, "Oh my God, that's attractive." Maybe it just is what it is, but we turn it into. There are cars that I think are really nice, but it becomes a personal thing. I wish I had it. I wish I want it. Again, it's a nice thing to say, "Oh, look at that pretty car." It's another thing to say, "I'm going to get that. I'm going to find my way to do it. I'm going to get the money no matter what it takes." So, um, but I don't know what you mean by objectification. For some people, it's staring and going around. I had a client who said, "I never went around a grocery aisle once if I saw an attractive person there because I would go around this way, I'd go around that way. Like I wanted to catch the front, the back, all of that." That's objectifying. Noticing someone's attractive is human. And I think this is part of a real struggle for spouses because you may have watched us stare right over your shoulder. Like, what were you saying? I'm sorry, I was staring at that person's butt. I can completely understand how devastating that is, considering where we're at. I think the hard part for a spouse is, "I never want you to look at another person again." Well, that's not being a human being. I'm going to notice, but staring, secretiveness, trying to connect with them, not hearing what you're saying because I'm so focused on them, that's when I begin to worry. Those are the things I worry about. But I do think that people look at people and they find them attractive, and that is part of being human. Um, yeah. So, Tammy, do you have other thoughts?
The
There's a lot
only
of
thing
questions in
is,
there.
well, yeah, there is. But the only thing is, we have lots of clients that come to our residential program who have been off substances for months, years, and they're still acting out sexually. And they have a place at our treatment program. So I'm going to tell, like, I'm not willing to say just go act out. I mean, everybody gets to choose, and we say that in our 12-step meetings too. It's like, if you're not done yet, go act out, and hopefully you make it back, but not everybody does. And I'm going, gosh, you're here, you're on this webinar, you're asking questions. So I would invite you to take the next step, like go, yeah, like this is a problem, and commit. There's 12-step programs. We have resources on our website. I will actually pull them up in a moment and put them in the chat, but they're like, pick, address the substances. Like there's lots of help for that, but don't switch to another form of acting out. It's like, really take the time to do the work so that you're getting the help, so that you can be happy, joyous, and free, and not just go, well, now I'm gaming, or now I'm, whatever, Amazon truck is pulling up to my house every 15 minutes, like that isn't
Well,
okay.
well,
What?
that
Well,
Amazon truck comes to my house fairly often. If I get a pair of
but
socks, I'm like, "Ooh, I have a box to open." But anyway, I don't think so.
yeah, but it's like, and yes, okay, we've all been trained, but I'm just saying, like, if we're looking for external things to make us happy
Right.
or okay, because you go, like I'm, because you said, oh shoot, where is it? This, I can't remember. Oh, to escape discomfort. If I'm looking for something to help me escape discomfort that is not in my outer circle, if you're doing this work, you've done a 3-circle plan. We've talked about it just a few minutes ago. What is in your outer circle that you can choose instead of grabbing, a drink or a joint? Like there's other options. I would invite you to look at that and really think about. I think if you're mindful of, like, what am I looking for, if I choose to do this behavior, and it's a choice. If I choose to do this behavior, what am I looking for? And if it's escape and numbing out, do I have another option? That's what a relapse prevention plan is. That's what a 3-circle plan is. And for those of us that have more than one addiction, it should have everything in our inner circle that we need to stay away from, in our middle circle, anything, boredom, uncomfortable feelings, those are yellow, those are problematic. And then what is the stuff that brings us joy and helps us connect with other people in a real and meaningful way? Nature, whatever it is, what makes us feel good, that isn't a maladaptive coping mechanism. So I'm inviting you to step into recovery, not straddle a fence. How's that?
And by the way, I'm writing notes. If you see me look down, I'm not chatting with friends, just to say it. There's a couple of things in here that I've got to mention. I want
Please.
to read back a sentence that you wrote. I want you to really hear this. I can get obsessive about using, and then using can lead me to behaving in ways that are selfish and have a negative impact on me and others. Doesn't that kind of answer your question? Is that who you want to be? Is that how you want to live your life? Do you want to think about, well, if I get a little loaded, then I'm going to say these awful things to people and then I have to clean it up? And why even have those questions of yourself? The other things I wrote are, number one, stop. If you think it might be a problem or not be a problem, take 3 months and don't drink and don't use and see what happens. Maybe it's not a problem. I don't know. But if you're asking the question, I think there's somewhere in the AA big book or Tammy that says, and I wouldn't agree with this number, but if you think you have a problem, stop for 30 days. And maybe you don't. I would go more like a few months. But nonetheless, you'll know if it's a problem if you can't stop or you return to another behavior. The other thing I wanted to say is what Tammy sort of implied. There's lots of ways to say, I don't want to do this, and maybe I shouldn't do this, and this is bad. But what do you want? When you look in the mirror, is that the person you want to be? When you look at the people you love, do you want them to feel hurt, harmed, disappointed when you go and do this stuff? Who do you want to be? A lot of folks, if not all, come to the treatment program because this person wants to leave them, or this happened at work, or, people come into treatment generally because there's a consequence and they want it to stop. Good reason to come. I don't care what you got in the door, got you in the door as long as you came there. But one of the things I really say to the men consistently is, who do you want to see in that mirror? Because we can't escape ourselves. And I want to see someone who has integrity. I named the program, I'll take responsibility for that. I named the treatment program because not the opposite of integrity is being disintegrated. I have this part of me over there, and I drink over here, and I sex over there. And integrity is no matter who I am, no matter where I'm going, no matter what I'm doing, I'm a completely open book. And when I look in the mirror, I feel really good about who I am. Not that you don't make mistakes, but at least you're headed in the right direction and you can validate that you're going the right way. So for every reason, please stop. You're not helping yourself. You're not helping the people you love. And by the way, you're looking at it, you're peeking around the corner, you're listening to this, you're asking us, you know the answer. You don't need us to say it to you. Anyway, thank you. Great question.
Yeah, so I put the 12-step groups. There's a list of resources on our website, so I included that. And Dr. David has a co-occurring sex and substance drop-in group free. Dr. David leads that on Tuesday nights. Join that. Like you get to be with Dr. David. It's awesome.
By the way, I have
Okay,
to
the
ask you,
next
Tammy,
question.
did you
Uh-huh.
notice, I don't want you to get it, that I'm drinking Diet Hawaiian Punch? I mean, that's probably something I should have stopped when I was 9, but I just can't help myself.
It's
Gotta have that.
diet. I didn't even know they made diet Hawaiian
Of
punch.
course they
So
do.
no, I
My
didn't.
plug
Like
is
I
not
haven't drank
working.
Hawaiian punch since I was a child. So yeah,
Well, okay, they call it fruit punch, but trust
I
me,
know.
it's diet, so I'm into it. Let me. My computer's going to go away, and my plug isn't plugged in, so I'm going to disappear for just a
Plug your
second
plug in,
under
but
my
you can hear
desk.
me, right?
I can.
Okay, so the next question, just wondering if staying with my PA essay means that I won't ever be able to send a spicy pic or sexy message to him. We've been doing all the things and he is over a year since last slip. I want to bring this up in couples counseling, but before I do, I would love your opinions. It seems like there's zero room for lust in recovery, but at the risk of sounding crazy, I enjoy a little fantasy and sending a spicy pic or message once upon a time, and I miss doing that. But if is that a hard no when you're with a PASA? Could it be bad for him? Could being my authentic sexual self be dangerous for our relationship? This is a
Why don't you
great
start,
question.
Tammy, and I will
Yeah, well,
get out
like,
from under my desk in a
so,
second.
yeah. So have you asked him? Like, there's a place to start. Have you asked him to think about, if I sent this to you, how would you feel about that? Would you feel like that would be a welcome thing? Would you feel like you would go to, like a problematic place, for your recovery? I would talk to him. I talk to your spouse, and say, but let's go with it feels like, we can't ever have any, fantasy or fun that, like, this is not, so, recovery is not drudgery. Like, yes, it's finding a new path and finding out what works for the two of you, but you're interested in doing this. Like, I really would encourage you to talk to him first. Talk to the couples counselor, fine, but say, like this has been on my mind. I'm really curious. Like, how would you feel about this? Do you feel like you're in a place where this could be welcome? Would there be negative consequences for you? Are you willing to try this? Like, there's lots of different ways to have a conversation about that. And maybe it's like, you try one thing, try a little, a spicy outfit or something. I don't know, like, ask him, like, this is his recovery. But I want to go back to, could it be bad for him? Nothing you do or don't do is going to make him act out. I honor that you're willing to say, hey, like, I'm concerned about this, because I also feel like if you did it without, talking to him, like, you may be concerned about it. It may not have the fun that you intended it. So have a little conversation. Thoughts?
Well, I always like, by the way, my computer, oh, I don't know what's going on, but hopefully I've got 10%. Let me turn let me turn this down, and hopefully we'll make it. So here's what comes up to me in situations like this. I like to replace sex with something else. So if you said, just wondering if staying with my alcoholic partner
Oh,
means I
yeah.
won't ever be able to stock the house with alcohol and drink in front of them. Um, I would say, how how willing are you to protect and support the person that you care about? Do you want to wave this in front of them and say, here it is? Um, I do think that there are things we have to give up in recovery, and I'm not sure that you want to put the other person in a situation where, in other words, what is it to give this up? What is it to give up the pictures and the pics? And I understand it's disappointing. I understand you have fun with it. But when you're looking at that versus the nightmare that occurs when the person's acting out, to me, there's no balance. And by the way, there is the phrase, there is zero room for lust in recovery. That's not true. I can lust with my partner. I can lust with someone I'm dating. There are many, many ways to have lust without it causing negative consequences. One of the 12-step programs says that in recovery, the lust of the mind will drain away. I'm not sure that that's really accurate. I'm a human being. I'm going to lust. I'm going to have sexual feelings. But how do I play that out? What do I do with this feeling of lust? And I'm not sure, Tammy, maybe I'm missing something because I was under the desk fixing my computer. But you tell me, is there something, when I use the example of the alcohol, is there something that makes sense to you about that? Did I get that right? Just please help me, fill me in here.
I'm in a different camp because my recovery is mine. And, I was really young. I returned to my parents' home, and my mom was concerned about, having alcohol in the house. And I said, it's my problem. And they maintained alcohol in the house. And I went to my meetings. I did not relapse. So, they asked me, and my husband, for a while, he doesn't anymore, but he was making beer. And the irony of him, making beer, he doesn't do it anymore, and that was his choice, but he was making beer in the garage, and I was like, that is kind of funny. And you know what, like, like that didn't mean anything to me. So to me, this is real, really more what, if you guys have an open conversation about this, and there is an opportunity, if he goes, yep, no, stop, I need to go call my therapist, like, you would know, but if he's in a good place with his recovery, if he's taking care of himself, then, maybe he has a different suggestion of, like, well, instead of a pic, because, images were an issue, maybe it's something else. Like, have the conversation of, like, what would feel good, what would be invited, so to me, my recovery is my own. But it doesn't mean, I've been out with friends who drink, and there have been times when I've said, could you please, I don't want to smell it, I just don't need the smell, but it's I didn't grab the drink and, I didn't go off in this big fantasy. It was just like, yeah, I just don't even need to smell it, but it wasn't that I went off on this tangent of things. And that was like, I'm a ways into recovery, but even in my early recovery, I wasn't hanging out at bars or anything else, but I maintained my recovery. So if he's working a really good program and he has a solid plan, like I think he'll have a pretty good indicator. And I think you can go, let's try this. And it can even be, Scott, I love Scott's, putting the framework around, like I've got
Who is Scott? You have to say who Scott is.
Scott, my colleague, your colleague, Scott, and he'll say,
No, I
I've got
know.
guardrails. Yeah, we've got guardrails.
He
So
runs
like,
he teaches the
yes, he
porn
teaches sex
addiction
addiction
101
101.
course.
And it's like, oh, like maybe like you're going to do whatever. But there's like, I'm going to let my peer support, my sponsor know, and then I'm going to contact them afterwards just to have that safety zone. I don't know, come up with a plan, but yes, there's grief for, some of the things that you miss out on, but like, again, recovery, it doesn't have to be all drudgery. And, could there be something different that, wasn't part of the acting out before, that would be, welcome for the two of you. So, but, yeah.
So I hear you, Tammy. I've got to say, if I'm a porn addict, I don't want people to send me nude pictures. I just
That's
think
what I'm saying. It may not be
it would
pictures, but
set
it may
me
be
down
an
the
outfit.
road. But I do want to say something. I want to hear more about that outfit later, Tammy. Let's not bring that up here. But I'm kidding you. But I do want to say
Yeah.
one more thing about this, which is, and it's really right on what Tammy said. It's not just in my mind about asking him. It's about asking him to go check it out.
Yes.
So I have a client, for example, who wants to see if they can return to masturbation. Yes or not. The answer is not with porn, because that puts you in a whole place that's not good for you. But talk to your sponsor. And my response to him was talk to someone about it. And most people don't have to do this, but we do. Say to them, this week I'm going to do this. And I'm going to let you know. And after I do it, we're going to have a conversation about it. So it's not hidden. It's not a secret. And I can say, oh my God, after I did that, all I wanted to do was have sex with other people. Or, it really wasn't a big deal. So far, so good. I'll keep checking in with you about it. So I think, Tammy, it really is the answer. Don't do it alone. And that's not your thing. That's his thing. So can you send this? Can you not? The truth is, I don't know, and he may not know either, but the people he surrounds himself with who are not in this situation will be able to give feedback. And he probably needs to check in before and then after, so that there's some kind of accountability. And he just doesn't go off into fantasy land without being able to check it out with someone else. So I think we've
And he
answered that
doesn't
question.
like give the details of what you did. It's just like this is not about him sharing you. This is about him staying in integrity about him, and like, we're going to try something a little, what?
Well, I just want to say to you that you do realize that there's no privacy online. So,
I'm not even saying it has to be online, but like, does
no,
it
I'm
have
just
to
saying,
be right? Oh, I agree with
if
you.
you
Yeah,
are, I mean,
images.
these days we probably don't take a photo. We probably send something online, a sexting or whatever. But if you guys break up, if things don't go well, as happened before, I can post that. I people say, oh, I sent sexy pictures to this person. I sexted and I looked at this and I think, if they can blackmail you. And this isn't your
And
situation,
they
but I
do.
have
Yeah.
people, oh my God, a lot of clients come into treatment because they have been blackmailed. And sometimes I'm going to tell your wife, I'm going to tell everyone in your life, I'm going to tell everyone in work, and they do. So I'm also cautious about being really careful. The whole arena worries me in general. And in this circumstance, I think I'd be very cautious. What I love is you're asking the question. I think that's a really good question to ask. And we don't have the answer, but we can pose a lot of different ways to look at it. But be careful when you're out there sending pictures. Trust me.
Yeah. Yeah. I be careful with your content, but what you do, like, at home or whatever, maybe there's some sexy notes. I don't know. Ask, have a conversation. Okay. That's the end of our questions. I know your computer's about ready to die. Anybody else have a question? Because otherwise, I think I'm going to tell you to go plug in your
I'm going to
computer.
feed my dog. I do have a comment for you guys.
Please.
Two things, which is, and you may have heard me say this before, but there's no cost for this. There's no cost for the hundreds of podcasts that I've done at this point. There's no cost for all the blogs that I've done. There's no cost for the 14 or so support groups that we get therapists to volunteer for. I would say 80% of what we do is absolutely free. And I really want you guys to hear that. We are committed to making sure that maybe you don't have therapy, maybe you can't afford it, maybe you don't can't go to treatment or what, but you can get information. And Tammy uses the word resource. And I think that is something that we constantly really try to be for people, is a resource. Do we have things to sell? Absolutely. We have courses, we have treatment. We need to, put a paycheck in our pocket too. But it's more for us about doing service and being able to help people without that. By the way, Tammy knows this, and I have a little pride. We are the number 19 relationship podcast in Canada. I don't know what that means, but we're number 19. And believe me, to get all the way up there from 153, what it means to me is people are listening and they're getting information and they value it. And I'll take number 19. Better than number 20.
But that's Canada, like they're Australia. I mean, they're all over the world, like those podcasts. So if you haven't heard our podcasts, Sex, Love, and Addiction and they're posted on the Seeking Integrity site. You can find everything through Seeking Integrity. I do want to add, because you mentioned, and there's more than 14 drop-in groups a week, but wow. We have the Sunday night men's group is back. Garrick just had it for the first time last night. That one has been out of commission for about 6 months. And I finally found somebody who was willing to host it. He enjoyed it. He said, I'm going to love doing this. I'm like, yay, that's a win. So if you're a male addict and looking for that Sunday night slot, again, it's back. Check out our calendar and join that. And for the women who are looking for betrayed partners for porn addicts, where their partner's a porn addict wow. only, not, I've got somebody who is probably going to take that one. So stay tuned. I'm working on more options. So
I do, since we're talking about porn addiction, I want to say, why are there separate meetings? Why doesn't someone who has a porn addiction problem go to a sex addiction meeting? And
they sometimes do, but
they do.
Go ahead.
But they develop their own whole program. There are sex addiction programs, and then there are porn addiction, and people go to different. For example, someone has a drug addiction might go to AA. An alcoholic might go. You go where you need to go,
or CA or whatever. Yeah.
But what I think, it's not just narcissism. Like, I've got to have my own group. To be honest, the porn addicts often sit in a room by themselves. They don't date. They're not sexual with anyone else. They go to an SA meeting, a sex addiction meeting, and that person, sad for them, but they've had sex with 30 people and they're paying for sex and they're whatever. And the porn addict says, gosh, I wish I could leave the house. I wish I could connect with a person. And that's not the way to do it, but it isn't useful for them. They need to talk to the other people who haven't had sex ever with another person, because it is a different set. So what I'm saying to you, for those of you who have porn addiction and you haven't been to a porn addiction meeting and you haven't really crossed the line into compulsive sexual behavior out in the world, I think that there's a place for you. And it is a different place. And I really encourage you to consider it. Yeah.
So there's a new book, Porn Addiction 101, has launched, and that's posted on our website. Second of all, there's a porn.
I think I had something to do with that book.
You did, and our clinical director who co-hosts this. And then the Porn Addiction 101, we have a separate work group for that. But for the partners, just like you're saying, there's a difference. The partners sometimes feel like, well, I can't feel as bad about it because he didn't act out with people, and we're going but it was still infidelity. It still crossed the line. He's still taken hours. Some of them have paid for, things. So it still is a betrayal. And so that's where I'm looking to fill that gap. But yes, many of them go to the drop-in groups as well. The regular.
I just wanted to comment on that, Tammy, really quick, which is I was a part of a research study with Dr. Jennifer Snyder, who's a really good friend. And there was a question on there that we did research on, which is how many spouses feel that when their partner is looking a lot of porn, that they feel betrayed or they feel like that person is with someone else. And something like 80% of them said, I feel like I'm not good enough. I feel like they have had an affair because they're spending all their time with porn. And so just to say it, I'm not judging porn. It's not my job to judge it. Enjoy it, don't enjoy it. And it isn't. I guess the issue is lying about it. If I'm your partner and I say, gee, I like to look at porn once in a while, and you say, me too, and it's not a problem in the relationship, go right ahead as long as we have a healthy sexual life. But if you're looking at it and you're not telling the person you're living with, and they're wondering, and I hear this all the time, why are they so distant? Why aren't we sexual anymore? Why do they get out of bed at 3 in the morning and they disappear? Why are they, I do think it's a lack of communication and the hiddenness that is really the problem. It's always the problem. But with this particular thing, it's so easy to hide. Well, I've got to be in the office another hour. Or I know you got to go to dinner, but I just got to finish this work. Or, my spouse spends all this time in their office. I don't understand why. Um, it's a problem. And by the way, it doesn't just affect you, it affects your children because that person is not present. And trust me, and I'll just say this and we'll stop. Almost all the men I work with, whether it's in treatment or elsewhere, they come in and they say, the ones who are married and have kids, they say, I haven't been a good husband. I haven't been a good partner, but I've been a good dad. I went to that baseball game and I helped with their homework and I was around all the time and I made meals. And the thing is, if you are not supportive to the mother of those children, if you're leaving that mom feeling anxious or alone or distance or confused, you're not being a good father because being a good father is supporting the mother of those children and not simply saying, well, they got it. Um, you're not being the best father you could be because you're not letting that mom be the best mom she can be. And actually, Tammy, that brings up a short story, which is this is really sad. I was talking to a mom not that long ago in one of the consultations that I do. And I do consultations about 2 hours. If somebody wants to have one, you can talk to Tammy. But this woman said it was so tragic. She said, you know, I don't get to enjoy being a mom. I have some very young children and I have to put on a happy face and I do my best to be a mom to them. But when I leave that room, I am so unhappy and disappointed in my own life that I don't get to have the joy of being a mother. And that really broke my heart, I have to say. And so with respect and appreciation, we're going to go feed our dogs, go have dinner. Good to see
There
you,
you go.
Tammy.
Thanks, everyone. Bye, Dr.
Okay.
Rob.
Bye, guys.